Hi, today I'd like to talk about how we're already living in the ruins. It's just hard to see what's no longer here with us. There's this idea that we live in the greatest time of humanity, the time of least violence. That's an interesting claim. Steven Pinker makes that claim. But I don't think it's true. But that's a different talk. The time of greatest technological progress. Well, that's probably true. But also the greatest time to be alive as a human being. The most comfort and we just have like everything at our fingertips. Is how the saying goes. There wouldn't be a better time to be alive than right now. Well, I think that actually it's not true, and I think that we actually are living in ruins, but because of normalcy bias. Normalcy bias is the bias of thinking that your current condition is normal, even if it may be completely abnormal relative to the rest of time that humans have experienced. Due to normalcy bias, I think that we tend to whitewash what we have. We tend to think that this is the best time. We're the greatest people. We're the greatest people that ever lived. We're the greatest civilization that has ever existed. We're the pinnacle of humanity. I think that there is a natural bias to do that, and a normalcy bias also to not see where we actually are. So that's what this video is about. I'm standing here at the Johnson Observatory for the Mount St. Helens National Monument. I don't think it's a national park. It's not a national park. It's a national monument. And the observatory is closed, and it has been closed for a couple of years at least, because the road washed out and it still hasn't been repaired. It probably won't be repaired until sometime in 2027. That's next year. This is my actual first time seeing Mount St. Helens, which is that volcano, in person, up close. I've seen it from far away, and I've seen it from the airplane, but I've never been here because the road's washed out. So I had to hike here with my friend Whiskey Rye. We hiked 5 miles, climbed 2,000 feet of elevation to come to the observatory from where the road washed out. This is Mount St. Helens. You can see the crater. You can see the new cone forming inside the old cone. Now, I think this environment brings up this topic in a couple ways. Number one, the Native Americans this mountain exploded in the 1980s. So how it looked before is in recent memory. And people said it was the most beautiful mountain of the volcanoes. There's multiple stratovolcanoes here in the Pacific Northwest. There's Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, Mount Hood, there's Glacier Peak, there's Mount Baker, there's the Three Sisters. There's multiple stratovolcanoes here, and both people recently and stories that Native Americans have told, legends from a long time ago, they all say the same thing, that Mount St. Helens was the most beautiful mountain out of all those stratovolcanoes. In fact, there's a legend of how Mount Adams and Mount Hood fought each other for the affections of Mount St. Helens, and they would sling fire and rock and lava at each other because they were trying to fight each other for Mount St. Helens. And that's how landslides formed in the Columbia River, forming the Bridge of the Gods. There's a legend about that. And that has to do with how beautiful Mount St. Helens is. Now, Mount St. Helens blew up, erupted in 1980. something, 1980 something. And she was much taller than she is right now. She was like this tall, where my tip of my finger is, and that just blew out towards where we are here on the observatory. It flattened all these forests. It set off avalanches and lahar flows, which are like dirt, ash, and snow, coming down the mountain really fast, going along the river valley. So where I'm standing right now is in the aftermath of an explosion that happened about 40 some years ago. Now, as you can see, the mountain is very differently shaped. The forests that covered the foothills of the mountain are all gone. Now they're starting to come back, but they are they're not like the forests that are on this side. I'll show you. There's a nice green forest on that side. That side is outside of the blast direction of this eruption that happened. So right now we're standing in a path of massive destruction, natural destruction, destruction of geological scale, and it's pretty incredible. It's incredible to see this. But it's also easy to look at this and then think, oh, this is how it always was. Mount St. Helens always was shaped kind of funny with a crater in a U-shaped crater. It was always like this. This is just how it always is. But that's not the case. Mount St. Helens used to be much taller, a beautiful snow-covered peak, surrounded by thick green forests. Not anymore. I feel like I'm in a different habitat with this sun exposure and this grasslands and dirt and ash. This is really quite stunning. That is also reflected in this Johnson Observatory. I'll show you that. It's this other way. There's the Johnson Observatory. It's closed. There's a few hikers out here, but not many. It was eerie walking up here because the road was closed. So the last part, we hike on a trail, but the last part you walk on the road, and it was eerie to walk on the road. There's no cars, and the road has kind of fallen into disrepair. There's grass coming up through the cracks, and there's nobody around. It's odd. It's a strange feeling, kind of like an apocalyptic feeling, like a Mad Max movie, where there's remnants of civilization, but very few people left. And the people that are left are scrounging to stay alive and murdering each other out of self-defense and out of necessity, out of bloodlust, psychopathic bloodlust. That's a Mad Max. Kind of feels like that. It just feels weird. There's an amphitheater over here. It's empty. Actually, no. There's two hikers sitting at the very top, but it's for the most part empty. Very strange. And that also brings me to the fact that the road's washed out and it hasn't been repaired for years. I've lived here for 5 years, I think now, in the Pacific Northwest, and I've always wanted to see Mount St. Helens because I've read about it in books when I was a kid, and I saw there's a Pierce Brosnan movie called Inferno or something like that, where he escapes an exploding volcano, and it's an old one, and if you look at it now, the CGI is awful. I looked at it a couple years ago and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I watched this. Wow, my eyes are hurting. I want to pop my eyeballs out and wash them now. Yeah, but I always wanted to see Mount St. Helens because I read about it and I was like, that's so cool. It exploded, it erupted. Today's the first day I visited Mount St. Helens. But I lived here for 5 years and I wanted to visit here, but I couldn't because of the road being washed out. But my friend Whiskey and I, we've gotten much stronger at hiking, and we learned that we could hike here. It's a 10-mile hike round trip, and so we knew it was going to be a sunny day. We'd have good visibility, and we just got our packs together and we made it out here. But this is not the only road that's washed out. The other volcano, Mount Rainier National Park, has a beautiful trail that circles it called the Wonderland Trail. There are 3 entry points: Longmire, and Sunrise, and the Carbon River. It's not important to know those names, but this trail is like 90 some miles long. It goes around the base of the mountain. So it's really important to have those entry points so that you can have resupplies every 30 miles. They're kind of like at the 3 parts of the circle. But the Carbon River entrance, the bridge has fallen into disrepair. It's a really old bridge. Now all of a sudden, one of those 3 entrances are gone. Now you only have 2, separated by 30 miles on one side and 60 miles on the other. There are people that live in that area that can't access their home through the usual way because the bridge is too old now and is going to cost too much to repair. That the state of Washington is debating whether to fix it or not, and has been for a while. And there's no news, as far as I know, I haven't looked up recently, about repairing it. So it's like that is just gone now. And that's not the only one either. There was some massive flooding in Washington State in December of last year, 2025, due to the climate changing, the climate warming. What happened was it snowed a bunch. It snows a whole bunch in the wintertime here. It snowed a bunch in the mountains, and then it warmed up a lot. And an atmospheric river came through and dumped rain, but it was very warm, so the melting temperature was at a very high elevation. So all that snow that had accumulated, that melted, and it flowed down the mountain, and it combined with the torrential rains that we had, and those 2 things just swept away roads and bridges and houses. People died. Towns got submerged. Well, because of those flooding, there's been many roads to beautiful places that have washed out, have not been repaired. Highway 2 did get repaired. The roads off Highway 2, like Index, Galena, washed out, still not repaired. The roads to beautiful trails on Mount Baker, washed out, not repaired. The North Cascades National Park, one of my favorite national parks, beautiful mountains, steepest mountains in the 48 mainland of the United States, 48 state mainland. That highway still not repaired, major damage. Usually it's open by now once they clear the snow. They are working really hard to repair it, but it's not repaired yet. That one will be repaired at some point this summer, but there are roads off the side roads off of that are horribly washed out. I don't even know when they'll be repaired or if ever. There's a beautiful town in the mountains called Stehekin at the end of a very long lake called Lake Chelan, which is Native American for deep lake. It is a beautiful, beautiful town, a really cute lodge, a yummy bakery. You can bike along the road there. There's gorgeous mountains all around. There are some rattlesnakes and ticks, so you got to watch out for that. But it's such a gorgeous place. that town, their water supply got and their waste management supply and their power got all wiped out by the flooding in December. And I was wanting to take my wife there to Stehekin because I had gone there. I've gone there a couple times now on my own. And I wanted to take my wife there, and I talked with her about it for a couple of years now. It's like, hey, let's go. And then we decided, okay, we're gonna go in 2026. Well, the lodge there is they had so much damage they decided not to open. You know how big of a decision that is? Like that's the summertime there is their business. They decided just to not open this summer because there's just too much damage to the town and their property. Yeah, it's just kind of like, it gives me a funny feeling that I'm like, the roads aren't being fixed. I mean, some of them are, the main ones, but a lot of the roads are just they're just left in disrepair, wrecked. Places, beautiful roads into the wilderness are like big access to chunks of beautiful wilderness are just being left inaccessible. It's like civilization is ceding its access. It's ceding its territory that is claimed for itself. It's like nature is reclaiming what's hers. It's a funny feeling because I hear these stories of like how we live in a time of like this is the peak of civilization, but I think we passed the peak. When I go out and I live and I see these things, and I realize that I'm living at the edge of civilization and the wilderness. And I'm seeing the wilderness winning. It's taking over. And then I hear the stories that civilization tells about how we're at the peak. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Because when I go explore the edge is ceding. It's like the tide's coming in. The ocean is coming back to take what's hers. That's what I feel. That's what I see. And then it really kind of gives me a different perspective on living in civilization. I live here in the Pacific Northwest in Washington, and we have these tech companies that are building data centers like nonstop. Data centers that like take up the energy of more energy than small countries. Spewing fossil fuel, CO2 greenhouse gases into the sky, heating up the planet even faster, accelerating the warming with abandon. Without, I don't know what the phrase is, with abandon or without abandon. Without regard to the future of humanity and all the other living beings we share this planet with. With the only regard being for share prices, shareholder value for shareholders, whether their investments will increase, which they are, astronomically. At what cost though? At what cost? The snowpack is the lowest it's been in a very long time. There is still snow, but it's places that I hiked even just last year that were just covered in snow, very difficult to hike through. There's no snow anymore at this time. No, I hiked them like in mid-June, and right now it's the end of May, and they're snow-free, but they were covered in snow in mid-June last year. Very, very concerning. It's just very concerning to see the forest burn up. There's a lot of forests that are burnt up already. But you know, when you don't see it, when you live in civilization, when you live like me in a box, when you live in a box with your cable or optical or fiber internet outlet coming out of your wall in your box. You can entertain yourself with shows and video games and movies, TV. When you can drive on the asphalt roads to the big box grocery store that has all this produce that's trucked in with diesel gas, and you can feed yourself, and you got water coming in through the tap into your box. You can go your whole life and not see what's happening. It really takes like driving out in a fossil fuel or an electric car, which is powered by the fossil fuel grid. It takes driving out and then looking. What I see is I see a very different story than the story that's being told. And that's why I tell the stories here, because I'm seeing a different story. I see these tech companies not caring about our impact on our climate, our one atmosphere, on the life support systems of the earth. I see the billionaires that run these companies just flaunting their wealth. They're in Seattle, in the harbor. The CEO of Meta, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, had his yacht. It is like a gigantic yacht. I mean, bigger than many buildings. I mean, it is huge. He had brought it in to the harbor. Like right after his company had announced laying off thousands and thousands of their workers. Yeah, just like not a good look. There was a guy painting on an easel. He stood on the dock. He's a painter. He set up his easel and he had his canvas, and he was looking at this giant yacht parked moored in the harbor, and he painted it. And then he painted fire and flames coming off the top of it, and that went viral on the internet. Because I think a lot of people feel like, well, something's really messed up with the way that our wealth system works, our economic system. Things are not fair. Things are highly unequal, and it seems to be getting worse. I mean, it is getting worse. This is like pre-French Revolution inequality levels. It might even be worse. This is like Marie Antoinette saying, "Let them eat cake." Kind of moment, with this giant yacht, and then this guy painting, and he's like, I'm just gonna draw some flames and smoke coming out the top and share it online, and then it explodes online. and I had no idea that this. I just don't understand these yachts. They're just so big. I was reading that it cost $800,000 a day to operate this yacht. $800,000 a day. That's obscene. And this is even more obscene. It requires 2 support yachts that look like giant Navy ships or exploration ships. They have a crane. They have crane on them to launch even smaller boats from the big boat. And a helipad, and I think that's where a lot of the crew and supplies and fuel are stored. Because if you have a giant yacht like that, you don't want to sleep with your helpers. I mean, sleep in the same area as your helpers, right? They need to sleep on the other boat, the helper boat. That's messed up. That's messed up that you need a boat that needs 2 other boats. That's messed up. What the heck, man? I see that massive wealth inequality. I see this kind of disassembly of this kind of social trust, a mutual agreement to survive together, to coexist. I see it eroded away. It's not eroding, it's eroded away. Past tense. It's eroded away. Yeah. I mean, not to mention all the shenanigans about ICE and the protests and the murders of citizens and people who are racially profiled. And just like there's that, and like here's another one. I was hiking with my wife yesterday in a different part of the state, in the north part of the state, and we're driving back, and there was a town where we had a run-in. We got lost, and we had stopped on the road in front of someone's driveway, but like we were on public property on the road because I needed to like figure out. I had typed in the wrong thing into the GPS, and so I needed to. We were lost, and I was trying to figure out how to get to where we wanted to, and we were just parked there for literally like 2 or 3 minutes, and the owners of this house, this big guy with a big belly, and his son, who also was a big guy and a big belly, they came out and they looked mad. And they were like stomping their way towards our car. And my wife was like, hey, we need to go. I'm like, no, I'm just finding it. She's like, no, we need to go right now. And I looked over and I saw these two Caucasian men, angry, and they're coming at us. They weren't coming to say, hey, you guys lost? You need some help? No, they were mad. They're like, what the heck are these Asians doing in front of our property? That town of Concrete, Washington. That happened. Well, we were driving by Concrete yesterday, and there's a sign in front of the town that says Concrete welcomes you, but like the sign, like the ink was like looked like it was like melting down. It like looked like a horror movie sign. Concrete welcomes you. And we're driving through, and then today, and I've seen this before, there's a big tent in like the like a common meeting area. There's a huge white tent set up with there's like several people there, and there's flags sticking out on both sides of the tent. And there were MAGA flags and Confederate flags, and I was like, we're not even in the South where the Confederacy was. Like Washington State, I don't even think existed during the Civil War. It was formed after the Civil War. Well, why are you flying a Confederate flag other than to say that you wish that it was back in a time where white people could own people that have skin colors that were darker than them? I mean, what the heck, man? Yeah, I think we're living in we're not living at the peak anymore. I think we're past the peak. I think that these social agreements, they've fallen to the wayside. I think people have just given into their animal. No, I don't even want to say that, because that I think animals are a lot smarter than humans, are a lot wiser too. I think we've given into a very base instincts and desires. We have thrown our wisdom and foresight, our intuition, our empathy, we've thrown it into the wind. It's gone. That's what I feel like. I feel like we are already living in the ruins. But the interesting thing is, it's not like Mad Max. In Mad Max, everyone knows that they're living in the ruins. Everyone knows this is it. I'm probably going to die today. But we don't live in that. We live in a time where people expect to live till they're 90. Or even 100, or even they expect to live virtually with their consciousness uploaded to the servers that will run forever. They'll run even after humans are gone. their consciousness will still be around in the servers. That's the time we live in. A very interesting time. Yeah. Those are the thoughts that come to my mind when I visit this volcano. She's beautiful. You're a very beautiful mountain. And this shuttered observatory. It's really kind of a neat experience. I'm just trying to find my way through this time. I'm not buying the stories that I've been told. I had internalized at one point, but I've now ejected them out of my mind, at least. My soul probably too, partially. Just trying to find a different story to live by. I think we're past the peak. We just I can't do anything to make it go back. I don't think anyone can. I don't think anyone can turn back time to make us go back to the peak. I think we're past it, and we just have to find our way. Yeah. Interesting times. What do you all see? I'd be interested to hear what you see from where you live in your part of the world. You may even be here in the Pacific Northwest. I'd be curious to hear what you see, because we all have separate perspectives. We're all connected in more ways than we can even imagine. We're all connected, but we all are also separate beings with our own unique perspectives. I'd be curious to hear what you see. Bye.